Chapter 19. The Broken Man, Chui. My two roommates didn't decline my treat at all. They were either the type who never turned down a free meal or genuine, forthright friends worth keeping close. They told me the fourth roommate wouldn't be back until nightfall. After making up my bed, I headed out for drinks with them. They took me to a small local eatery, ordering spicy boiled pork slices, braised beef in soy sauce, and a simple cold side dish. I asked if they could hold their liquor, and they grinned. Just pour it on. We'll drink right alongside you. With that, I had no more reservations and told the waiter to bring a crate of Harbin beer and serve the cold dish first. I craved alcohol, longed to get dead drunk, and empty my mind entirely. If she'd always planned to break up with me, why let me see her off? Why smile at me one last time? Was it all just revenge? Had I really sinned so deeply? Cheers, boys. I'll finish mine. You take it easy. I raised my glass for the third round. Both of them could outdrink me for sure, yet I was already on my third bottle in quick succession, clearly off. After clinking glasses and finishing another drink together, Baolong asked, "Bro, something's weighing on your mind, isn't it?" I refilled my cup. The beer here tasted better than the stuff back home, yet the more I drank, the bitterer it grew. Alcohol was already clouding my head. I forced a smile and said, "I just got dumped." We drank until we were thoroughly wasted. There's no truer bond between men than fighting or drinking together. Over one messy meal, we clicked like old best friends for years. Slouched together, cigarettes dangling from our lips, we stumbled back to the dorm. When we arrived, the fourth roommate had returned. He looked much older, with a full head of facial hair. I handed him a cigarette and introduced myself. His name was Wang Chung, and I later learned he was already 23 years old. Lights out fell, and I lay in bed listening to Li Xiaoqiang's thunderous snoring, my head spinning. Whoever said drinking numbs heartbreak could go to hell. Humans are pathetic by nature, and I understood that all too well in that moment. The harder you try to forget something, the more it lingers in your thoughts, buzzing around like flies you can never swat away. I dragged myself out of bed to use the restroom and glanced out the window. Dawn was breaking, the sky pale and gray. My lonely college life had officially begun, and it seemed it would stay this dismal. I had always been emotionally fragile, a truth my close friends, and even my boss would point out years later, saying I was never cut out for harsh work. College life turned out just as bleak. Classes started the very next day, with no military training to buffer the transition. Our class had roughly 30 students, and as usual for art majors, there were far more girls than boys. Unfortunately, every single one of them was painfully plain. Later, when listening to a crosstalk routine by Teacher Gua, his description of Teacher Li's sister sounded exactly like the girls in our 2006 visual communication class. Still, their looks meant nothing to me. I grew quiet and withdrawn, numbed by heartbreak and misfortune. I disconnected from everything around me, speaking almost no words unless I was drinking with Baolong and the others in the dorm. I dragged myself to lectures without listening to a single word the useless professors rambled on about. Halfway through the first semester, most of my classmates didn't even know my name or that I existed at all. My tutor, Lu Mingming, was a thoughtful man who pulled me aside for repeated talks. He warned me my extreme introversion was self-destructive. I knew it too. I'd lost all motivation, merely drifting through life with no purpose. Bad habits are hard to break, though, and I sank deeper into apathy. As an old saying goes, in silence, one either goes insane or grows more twisted. Lu Mingming was no doubt worried I'd end up like the infamous Ma Jiajue. I was indeed unraveling. One day, Baolong suggested getting a haircut and dye, and I tagged along. He went for a buzz cut dyed bright yellow. My own hair had grown long enough to cover my eyes, so I dyed it a vivid shade of blue, looking like a tacky cosplayer, glaringly out of place. The two of us, one yellow-haired and one blue-haired, were a ridiculous sight on the streets. Thinking back, we looked utterly foolish. Back in the dorm, we noticed we were missing one primary color and pressured Li Xiaoqiang to dye his hair red. Lying in bed reading a fantasy novel, he simply rolled over and muttered weakly, "Idiots." None of us in the dorm were model students, myself included. 2 months into freshman year, we skipped most classes, spending every waking hour in internet cafes. Changzi Baolong, a kid from another dorm named Xiao Tao, and I gamed Perfect World day and night, sneaking out after curfew nonstop. We drank whenever we were hungry and crashed in the dorm only when exhaustion hit. Plenty of ridiculous things happened during that period. One night, the four of us pulled an all-nighter. Next to me sat a young boy, no older than a high school freshman or sophomore. His hairstyle was even more outrageous than mine, bright pink, styled like a Super Saiyan or the Statue of Liberty. I was afraid his spiky hair would prick me as I walked past. I glanced at his screen and spotted his absurd online nickname written in garbled internet leetspeak, "For you infertile forever." I stared at it for ages, confused, until Taozi translated the nonsensical characters for me. I was stunned by his reckless attitude. I was nearly 20 and still a virgin, yet this kid dared to flaunt such a crude, ridiculous username at his age. Late into the night, I could barely keep my eyes open. I slipped on headphones, rested my head on the desk, and drifted off. A sudden ear-splitting crash jolted me awake. I'd thought a lighter had exploded, only to see the pink-haired boy slamming the spacebar violently while playing a rhythm game, cursing nonstop the entire time. I patted his shoulder politely and asked him to keep it down. Instead, he shot me a fierce glare and snapped, "Who the hell do you think you are?" I couldn't help but laugh, along with my roommates. Changzi grinned and headed to the restroom, returning moments later with a plunger. He lit a cigarette and stood behind the hot-tempered boy. Once he was in position, I slapped the kid hard across the face to teach him some manners. Dazed and stunned, the boy was dragged by Changzi into the internet cafe hallway. We were regulars there, and the night staff disliked the rude teen, so they turned a blind eye. The four of us gave him a brutal beating. Crouching on the floor and clutching his head, he clearly cared more about his hairstyle than the pain, ready to fight over insults, but terrified of ruining his hair. I grabbed him by the collar and lifted him up, growling, "Now, do you know who we are?" He nodded frantically. Still unsatisfied, I suddenly remembered his ridiculous username and snapped, "We wouldn't have beaten you if you weren't so pathetic. You can't even write proper Chinese, yet you flaunt garbage like 'For you infertile forever.' Change it right now to loyalty to the nation." Teary-eyed and trembling, the boy edited his nickname on the spot. The four of us burst into laughter, joined by the other gamers in the cafe. I scoffed at him, "You're no warrior, just a sad little mess. Get lost." The defeated boy fled the cafe in a panic, and we went back to our game. Then a thought struck me cold. When had I turned into this? What was happening to me? I'd barely slept for an entire week, yet I forced myself to focus on in-game quests. Quests in Perfect World were endless, mindless running back and forth across the map. I played as an archer, gliding from one corner of the realm to the other. Soft music played through my headphones, and my bloodshot eyes stared blankly at the screen until hallucinations began to blur my vision. Extreme sleep deprivation warps the mind, and this was my first time experiencing it. I felt myself pulled into the game world, soaring through the sky above rolling mountains and winding rivers. The patterns from the three purity scriptures, which I hadn't thought about in months, surfaced in my mind. For a fleeting moment, I felt peaceful and happy, happier than I'd been in a long while. I kept flying endlessly, lost in the illusion. Perhaps only in false dreams could I escape the cruelty and coldness of reality. Bao Long shook me awake, jolting me back to reality. "The school's checking attendance today. We have to show up or we'll lose credits." I stretched slowly, realizing I could no longer abandon and neglect the three purity scriptures. After signing in at school, overwhelming exhaustion pulled me down, and I collapsed onto my desk for a nap. I woke just in time for the final period, an impromptu psychology class. A gentle young female teacher with glasses lectured us on basic mental health tips. It all sounded useless to me. For someone broken like me, empty words could never fix a shattered heart. She handed out sheets of paper and introduced a simple psychological test, the house tree person drawing. We were told to sketch 3 things at random: a house, a tree, and a human figure. The idea intrigued me, so I picked up my pen. I drew the person inside the house and the tree outside, yet it felt incomplete. On a dark impulse, I added blades and snakes surrounding the house, a hanging rope dangling from a tree, a shadowed black background, and a cold, solitary moon. They're perfect, I thought.